Welcome to I Am Prime Minister, the podcast that gives celebs, comedians and influencers the keys to number 10 and a chance to run the country. If you're listening, please do rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. You can follow us on Spotify and watch us on YouTube. Today is a special episode. It's slightly different from what we've done before because as well as having a brand new Prime Minister, our Prime Minister this week actually has experience of being in and around that office. It's Jimmy Mcloughlin, former advisor to Prime Ministers and now host of the podcast Jimmy's Jobs for the Future. Thank you very much. Congratulations on your victory.
Thanks very much.
Now, Lorin Bell-Cross, your new chief political advisor, is here.
Hello.
He's your you,
Exactly.
if you like.
Yeah, it's always difficult to do your boss's job.
Now, a lot of political advisors become politicians, is that right?
yes.
Is that a path you ever saw for yourself? Are you surprised you've ended up being PM?
Yes, you do get quite a lot of former special advisors that turn into politicians. Matt Hancock, probably
Yes,
most famously.
absolutely.
Oliver Dowden, Deputy Prime Minister now as well.
Who saw Matt Hancock walking around as a special advisor and thought he should be the front man?
That's true.
That guy's got the charisma for the big job.
But it's also interesting because he was chief of staff to George Osborne, Shadow Chancellor in opposition, and then to sort of say, actually, I'm going to leave that job and become a backbench MP for the first few years of getting into government. It's quite an unusual sort of move, really.
Yeah, and for people who are unfamiliar with your backstory, can you tell us about your history before you became Prime Minister today?
Yeah, before I became Prime Minister today. Yeah, so I worked for Downing Street for 3 years, between 2016 and 2019. So mainly Theresa May and a few weeks Boris Johnson. I left to start a family when Boris came in. I sort of said to him, look, I've had some time to think about this and I just think I'm going to be a crap spad and a crap dad, so it's time for me to do something else. Went off out into the world to find a proper job, and then of course the pandemic happened. And so my wife went back to work and I became a stay-at-home dad to our 6-month-old. So I'd gone from kind of Downing Street to diapers, having previously flown around on RAF Voyager, and I was like, what am I going to do? And so we were listening to lots of audio and podcasts. And I thought, is there something I can do to help tackle the unemployment crisis coming up? And that's where I had that's where I sort of remembered that the conversation I had with Theresa May in number 10. My job was to be the business relations guy. So I would get the news about Debenhams or Wilkinson's over the last few weeks, making 10,000 redundancies. And it'd be my job to go and tell the Prime Minister that. And she would always say, but we're at record high employment, Jimmy. I don't understand where all these jobs are coming from. And because all I ever hear about is job losses. And what I actually thought was, well, it's entrepreneurs that are creating 1 or 2 jobs a day, but they never get news. So that's where the idea for Jimmy's Jobs of the Future was born, was basically interviewing entrepreneurs about the jobs that they were creating. I mean, that was 3 years ago now, and it's kind of blown up quite a bit. But and then it just kind of became a full-time thing, but it's a pretty crazy story looking back on it.
So now that you're back in Downing Street, you're thrilled.
Yes, exactly. Wonderful. I'm back here, back through the black door.
Now you're back through the black door. I have to say, as someone who's been in Downing Street, Lorin, have you been in Downing Street, haven't you?
Only on the outside.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sadly.
I thought you were. Well, you were a sort of Labour advisor,
Exactly.
weren't you?
Been out for a while.
Yeah. You would have been, what, 9 when Labour left?
Fucking hell. 16. Nah, joke.
Now,
You might get your turn again soon.
you're going back in, you're going to live there. Tell us about what it's like in Downing Street. I'm fascinated about the actual, what it is. Is it good? Is it a bit naff?
It's kind of in between. It's not a very conducive modern workspace because it is an old townhouse, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the building is a lot of where these quite important special advisors work are like old servants' quarters, right? And there's also no floor plan of the building, right? For security reasons, you don't get, most jobs you walk in, you get given a piece of paper being like, this is who you report to and this is where everyone sits.
Yeah.
In number 10, you don't get that for security reasons. So one of the first instructions that you're given is to just sort of walk around the building and get lost a little bit, and that's how you learn how to find your way around.
And when you become Prime Minister, because you're the first person with experience of actually being around someone who becomes PM, we sit here every week and we go, look, what are we going to do then? Like, as if policy is the first thing off someone's...
You made my job very hard because normally I could just quickly Google, oh yeah, this person's done this. Oh yeah, this one. You actually know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Which is
Actually,
very hard.
I think you're fine. is that what happens? You come in, you win the election, right? So the night before the election happens, the results come in early in the morning. What are the first steps on that first day of a new Prime Minister that you did with Theresa May?
Well, so the first thing is like, what are you going to say in the speech? That's the thing, and you give that speech, and then you turn around. So you give the speech outside, and all the staff are generally waiting inside behind the black door, which is where I was on that occasion. But what happens is they make the speech. But there's a bit of a delay. And one of the things that you got wrong, sorry to point this out, Matt.
No, it's fine. I don't mind.
In your intros, you said the keys to Downing Street. Well, there are no keys to Downing Street.
Oh.
There is not a key lock on it. And so it has to be opened by a police officer. And so obviously they don't want
It's a very expensive key.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I can work out how you can save 30 grand right there.
There you are. You should be Chancellor. And that's why David Cameron that time was caught humming when he finished his speech, because he was basically giving a message back to the door, because of course there's satellite delays and so on, and you don't want to be stood outside the door waiting for it to open, because that would not be a great start to your premiership, right? So that's the sort of first things that that happen, and then you walk in, you get clapped in by all the staff, all the civil servants, and then your first job is to go and write.
Different kind of clap for Boris Johnson, obviously.
Your first thing is to then go and write what you would do in the event of a nuclear attack. So that's the first thing of Prime Minister.
First thing is, congratulations, good victory. What happens when a nuclear Armageddon comes?
Exactly.
What does happen? What do you have to do?
Well, no one knows, and no one really releases what they say. So I don't know what happens to the notes actually when Prime Ministers change, but they basically go off to the security services and so on. So that's your literal first job.
And you then have to write a note.
You have to write a note of
giving your instructions
of what would happen. So it brings the enormity of the office home pretty quickly. If you hadn't sort of realised like how big a deal it was.
Yeah, because I suppose like a lot of it, especially from our point of view, looking outside, just looks like a lot of bureaucracy and trying to get things done and it not quite going your way. But there is a lot that you never hear about that is quite serious. Yeah,
there's a lot of that's very that you don't see. And there's quite a lot of ceremonial stuff as Prime Minister as well. I mean, there's a lot of foreign dignitaries that you need to see, etc.
Have you been in the room with a lot of the biggies then?
I've been in the room with quite a lot of the
presidents,
prime ministers. Yeah,
really.
Yeah.
What about a Trump? Were you in the room with Trump?
I was in the room with Trump. Yeah, and because Trump was always very interested in doing business stuff, right?
Yeah,
so he always wanted to meet British business and so on. So
was this with Theresa or with Boris?
With Theresa.
What was the dynamic like between them?
Well, it's quite interesting because a lot of these meetings with foreign leaders are often quite scripted, right? It's almost like a theatre play. Both embassies have been in touch beforehand. These are the points we want to raise. This is what we want you to kind of give way on, or this is what we're going to be asking for. With Donald Trump, obviously, that was it was not scripted. Like you just did not know what was going to come next, which made it interesting.
Because as a man, he was obsessed with jobs, right? It was all about jobs.
Yeah, it was all about jobs.
So did you ever have any direct dealings with him or his team about that?
Not with him personally. I mean, I was in the room when this stuff happened, but it was he was like, and he did have a way of putting stuff in.
Does he wear too much aftershave? It feels like he probably would.
I don't think.
You're not close
from the corner of the room.
I'm just curious, that's what I always think. Way too much Davidoff is what I'm feeling about Donald Trump.
But yeah, so it was they were pretty extraordinary meetings. But he did have a way of speaking, in normal language, and he does have a
look. I think the big
and jabs, Theresa. When did you give me those jabs?
I love it when he does it. Yeah, he does a really good Trump.
That's the only one.
I think. Look, and I think it's a big thing that I think you should bring into your premiership as a comic. Donald Trump is funny.
Yeah,
Donald Trump is objectively a funny man, and he's entertaining. And I think a lot of British politicians, especially, aren't great at that.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, a lot.
That's why Boris was good, right?
Right, Boris was good. Ronald Reagan to a certain extent as well. Like, I mean, Blair was a phenomenal kind of actor as well, like, communicator.
And he was funny in PMQs as well. Like, I think as your premiership kicks off, William Hague was funny, But I think as your premiership goes forward,
William Hague. His humour was always underrated.
Yeah, completely.
Like he's sort of like an actor that people love at the Fringe, and then he goes mainstream.
Yeah.
He's the Stuart Lee of comedy. So, like, I think, that's what we're going to do is to start your premiership. Premiership, we're going to give you got to go and do a load of stand-up gigs just to get funny enough for the.
What are you saying about my gigs so far? Well, I think it's true, and that's why. So then the next thing that you do as Prime Minister is you get on with appointing cabinet, right? It's the first thing. And I thought with this podcast,
let's appoint a cabinet then.
Let's appoint a cabinet.
So what are we thinking then? Right, I've got the cabinet positions here actually. So let's go through them and who you would like. Anyone from any part of the world. They don't have to be politicians. We will twist their arm and get them in.
Also, if you want to create a new department, have someone particular in mind who's like, right, I want this person to run this, even if it's not currently a government department, we'll make that work.
We can set up new department. We can do your PM. We can do whatever you want.
We can do whatever. Yeah.
We've already written your nuclear letter.
Remember it being that straightforward when I was there, Matt.
How good would that be though? You could just come in and go this, and then it happens.
But so I think your point about comedians being good communicators, I think we should appoint a cabinet of comedians.
A cabinet of comedians? Oh, no, I mean... I'll let you do it, Prime Minister. However, I will say it will be the worst room anyone will ever be in. Like, hanging out with comedians, just as a warning for you, is horrendous.
Why? Why is that?
Well, because we are all selfish, narcissistic lunatics.
Oh, wait.
Oh yeah, actually, politics. yeah, you'll be fine actually. So let's go for it. What comedians do you want and where?
Well, so I think you've got to get your big guns in first,
absolutely.
Right? So Michael McIntyre is a problem. His popularity is a problem.
So you need to put him somewhere to have him on side.
Well, this is it. Am I Prime Minister for a day or
no? This is the beginning of a premiership. This is long term. Let's think about this properly.
Top term has gone, so whenever.
This is a beginning of a decade long in power.
Yeah, absolutely.
So McIntyre, I think we make him ambassador to Washington. So you get him out.
Wow.
You get him out of the challenges
because you're worried that he would be a challenger.
Totally. But he will be great out there as well. I mean, you can imagine the meetings between Michael McIntyre and Donald Trump.
Oh, it'd be great, wouldn't it? Hello, Donald. Donald, you need to run some more things for us to go.
Excuse me, I'm not going to do that. Not gonna
Donald,
do that.
please.
Michael, I like you. You're a great bloke, but you're screwing me on jobs here. I'm not going to buy your steel.
The thing is, Donald,
crap.
you need more British tea. Okay, buy more tea. That's what we're selling
we
to
had
you.
a rebellion against you to stop buying your tea.
Do you want some shortbread? We can give you shortbread, Donald. That'd be great.
I'm going to invade. I'm going to take your
oil.
oil.
Shortbread in Washington. You put it in your mouth and they say American things.
I'm going to take your oil.
These are our only two impressions, by the way.
I can see it.
McIntyre's out the country. I like that a lot. Okay, let's move on then. Let's get rid of him.
So you get Michael McIntyre out of the country, and I think, Tom Davis, you could basically just
Tom Davis
put him into the Home Office.
Tom Davis in the Home Office.
He basically looks like the current Home Secretary, which is a real bonus. Right? And you want somebody who's large and in charge. So Tom
large
Davis
and in charge.
It's alpha sort of King Gary at the border,
Love that. Yeah. Tom Davis as Home Secretary sounds incrable. He'd like that as well.
And I think he'd be good at it.
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. He says yes to any job. Trust me, I've seen his resume.
Well, I was thinking that. You see, so where else do you want to put people? Ramesh Ranganathan, where are you going to put him? The thing is with Ramesh, we'll get a TV show out of whichever department.
Look, you'll absolutely get a TV show out of it. It just needs. Look, the thing with Ramesh though is you've got to give him a department that you can ruin because his eye doesn't stay on the ball because it barely stays anywhere.
You could say that as a phrase.
But he would call me a colleague. But yeah, Ramesh.
Minister without portfolio.
Minister without portfolio.
Who do you think would be good in place?
I think who'd be really good. You need someone like a Tom Allen would be good.
Oh yeah.
I think Tom Allen, you've got to do. Give him something where he's in touch with the public a lot. He's he's on TV a lot because people love him.
Minister for today.
We've already given it to Ramesh. We can job share it. We're revolutionary. We're creating new jobs for two people. There.
Okay, yeah. There's so many, like Rosie Jones, who's been on this podcast, Minister for Disability and Equality. I think that would be very good.
DWP, she'd be amazing.
Department Work and Pension, she'd be great there.
Got to give Zoe a job.
She's also great fun.
Yeah.
Rosie Jones. Jones is Liz Truss levels of fun.
And probably similar levels of chaos.
Yeah. Almost definitely, yeah.
And who else would you could you put in places?
Maybe like a Paul Merton or something somewhere. That'd be good. Like people respect and like him, don't they? Sandy Toksvig feels like a steady hand.
Yeah, that's right. She'd be quite good. quite good at culture. Yeah.
Zoe Lyons at defence. I'd like that.
Zoe Lyons at defence.
I always thought
been on SAS Who Dares Wins, knows the experience.
Yeah, that's true.
Friend of Matt Hancock.
Friend of Matt Hancock.
I think that's quite generous from what she told us.
Well, world's most horrible euphemism.
Friend of Matt. It's a euphemism for someone who broke lockdown rules. Oh, he's a friend of Matt Hancock.
Oh, there were lots of friend of Matt's around the corner, weren't there?
I think he put.
This is great. You know, I like this. Peter Kay, surely.
Oh yeah.
Where would you put him?
Gosh, comeback kid, right?
Levelling up.
Food and rural affairs.
You have that. That is a consideration of putting the cabinet together, right? At the moment, it's quite tilted towards the southeast, I would say.
Yeah.
So we need some
a few more sort of northern comics. So yeah, levelling up. I'd put him in food and rural affairs. He made garlic bread famous.
He did.
You know.
Yeah. Could he find the British equivalent of garlic bread? Yeah.
Yeah, he's I think we need a few more northern names. Let's a bit more diverse as a cabinet.
Yeah.
It's a bit more interesting because at the moment it's a very diverse cabinet the Conservatives have. We don't want to go in and just put a load of white male comedians.
Yeah.
Although if more people had that as their booking policy, I'd be on more. To be fair.
What's more diverse, the Conservative Party or the comedics booking circuit?
Well, I mean, at the moment, the Conservative Party. Yeah. Nish Kumar, because that'll ruffle a few feathers.
Oh yeah, that really does ruffle feathers.
Yeah, let's get Nish in because I think Nish would really upset. I mean, it might upset some of your voter base if we're assuming this is a Conservative government. I don't know.
Well, I think we probably we should.
If you then appoint him to something just for him to fail, then it's like right, we tried that. We tried diversity.
Well, maybe he should
within
be
the
food
cabinet.
and rural affairs because someone did throw a bread roll at him at dinner, didn't they?
I did. Yeah. Government of all the talents, wasn't it? That was Gordon Brown's thing. Goats, right?
The only thing you have to remember about comedians is we work for 20 minutes a night or an hour max. Like, you're not going to get a lot of hard workers out of this, but I don't think that's been a consideration in putting the cabinet together for a little while. But let's go straight forward, right? So we've got a cabinet roughly together now. Comedians, they'll all job share. They'll be disorganised. Don't worry about it. Now let's go straight in with some issues that you think need sorting. Like, what is something in your life that now you have the power you're going to sort?
So I really want to encourage people to be more ambitious and have a bit more risk taking. And I think what I would like to see is a big expenditure programme for young enterprise at school. So it's a Department for Education and a Department for Business Policy that I would love to really upscale that. And I'm talking, let's make it mainstream, let's put it on television. Like, rather than The Apprentice and Dragon's Den and those artificial things, we should have a national school competition of entrepreneurs, and there should be a grand final on television, like Britain's Got Talent almost.
But for actually like good ideas with interesting businesses.
Exactly. You guys did Young Enterprise at school, right?
I did do Young Enterprise,
I attended Young Enterprise.
Did you? But you didn't. What was the business though?
I was president but not involved.
I did Young Enterprise. We ran a local magazine.
Oh right.
Funded full by advertising.
There you are.
Yeah. I mean, just in about 2007, just when the magazine industry was really collapsing, like when local print media was not the done thing, we all sat around and went, we'll write our own magazine. And we got a complaint because we were calling up all these businesses to ask them to advertise in this magazine that, I mean, was a distribution of like 500 or something, like barely anything. And one woman called up the school because she thought we were trying to fraud her from another country. Because unfortunately, like one of the lads who was doing the calls was Polish, right? So he had an accent. He'd moved there recently. So he was calling up, and she went, "This is someone from another country trying to get my bank details." So she rang the school to complain about us, and they had to go, "Oh no, they're just really entrepreneurial."
Exactly, but that's what I think we should encourage more of. Basically, I think you could have it on social media as well, because they're quite creative. Some of these young people with the different ideas they come up with.
But sure, like, what kind of ideas do you want though? Because surely you can't just have. Because one of my policies would be like to ban Etsy. I think too many people are being too creative when they shouldn't be.
I keep turning into leader of the opposition here.
I keep having to buy fucking candles off people that I grew up with because they've decided that's their side hustle. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. What do we need? Come on, Prime Minister. What jobs do you want?
Yeah, but that's where jobs come from. And everyone's first idea is crap, right? So that's also the other thing, is like teaching people to sort of like get on with it. And I just think we need more people that are taking risk and coming up with business ideas, right? Because that's where you get jobs from and so on.
Almost like, in and I hate to say this to you, Prime Minister, in the thick of it. It's never the good start of a policy sentence, is it? When WhatsApp Britain, do you remember that? Where they set up a digital dividend. Yeah, I call app Britain digital dividends. We need to take that and work out what was good about it and then redo it. Because I think if you can get young people incentivized with money, because all I remember at school is being jealous of everyone who got EMA. You know, because they got 30 quid a week. That's what kids want. They want a bit of cash in their pocket.
The downside of EMA is everyone at my school did spend it on weed.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, no, I think you're fine. Let's reframe that. They were putting it back into the local economy.
Of course, yeah. Into young entrepreneurs from the area.
Young entrepreneurs. And they were improving our relationship with Colombia at the time as well, I believe.
I tell you what, there is a difference between working in Downing Street and in the thick of it. That when you're in number 10, when you watch In the Thick of It, nobody says, this is just like In the Thick of It. Whereas that is quite a common occurrence.
Is it really?
Yeah, there is.
So people are hyper aware of that kind of ridiculousness of politics then?
Definitely.
So now, look, we're looking at this, which is actually quite a good policy, you know, considering that a few weeks ago Zoe Lyons said just playgrounds for adults. You're really thinking about this, and I like that. When you've been in Downing Street, because obviously people sit round tables and come up with ideas, what is the most ridiculous idea that has ever been aired in front of you?
Oh gosh, that is a good question. I remember one of the most ridiculous scenarios that I kind of had to deal with was that we were having a meeting of the cabinet in Scotland, and Scotch whisky is a big export of the UK and creates a lot of jobs in Scotland and is very important. But the Scottish secretary at the time wanted the cabinet to each have a bottle of whisky in front of them on the table at the cabinet meeting. Bearing in mind the challenges that we were going through at the time, this was not the best optics. And we basically had to have a long argument with him about why this was not a good idea. And basically it meant having to run around him taking these bottles of whiskey off the table.
So he's like putting them down and you're taking them off as he goes.
Yeah. That was a kind of like slightly moment where
but there must be loads of things like that where like people are trying to crowbar their own department's interests in and what's important to them and what they think is a good idea. Like it's a lot of cooks, isn't it, the cabinet?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, the cabinet as well. But I remember also, I was on the end of a lot of business lobbying, right?
Yeah.
I remember one quite famous sandwich chain store, of which there were a number of in London, really wanted the Prime Minister to go to one of the new American stores that had opened up. They were like, it'd be really great PR for her. It's like, not as good a PR as it would be for you.
Yeah. I just think, this is all about, she would love a sandwich. That's what we're coming from a really...
Also, she's the Prime Minister, not an influencer.
Yeah, exactly. But so you're getting pitched all these things.
They're trying to go, it'd be great for the Prime Minister.
It'd be really, really good. Like,
it'll really increase her follower count.
And so when you were around in your former job before you were Prime Minister yourself, do you see the Prime Minister every day?
Most days, not every day. So it depends how senior you are, because that's also one of the other things that people get sort of confused about special advisors. You do get some very senior special advisors, and then you get some people who really are just essentially bag carriers. I was somewhere in the midst of that and had known the Prime Minister a while. So some days I would see her pretty regularly, and then other days, I wouldn't. So.
And going forward, because obviously you've been around it, like how casual or formal has the environment been before, and what are you going to go for in your Downing Street?
I think formality is quite important, actually. I'm quite a small C conservative on this. I do. So I always used to like practice kind of what I was going to say before going into a meeting with the Prime Minister, because it's like one of the most valuable things in the country, I think, is the Prime Minister's time. And actually, you've got to be clear with what you want and what direction you want to get from them as well. So I actually think, I would always refer to them as Prime Minister or PM. And that was pretty common, actually. I didn't really hear many people.
So you've never had it before where she'd turn around and go, just call me Teresa to people. Like it wasn't that cash. Like she was kind of like a start-up CEO trying to make it cool and interesting.
She would never sort of like correct people on that and so on. And I think that's good, because it's often you're making the decision based on the office, right? Not necessarily on the kind of the person.
Yeah, of course.
So it's I think a bit of that formality. I mean, Liz Truss insisted on bringing ties back, which
really.
Yeah. No, I'm not that fussed about that particularly, actually. But that she was quite clear that ties were coming.
People should be wearing ties.
People should be wearing ties.
Okay, interesting. Had people had a chance to buy them by the time? Yeah, I suppose there's all that stuff that you don't think, if you don't think about in the job. We on this every week are talking about policy and stuff, but it's all the boring admin. And I feel like probably a lot of the job is not fun being Prime Minister.
Yeah, I mean, the job, like, genuinely, a lot of the time you're dealing with decisions that no one else has been able to take on the way up.
Yeah.
So generally there isn't an easy answer, and it often ends up being the choice between a very bad decision and a kind of cataclysmic decision. And so that's not a good place to be when you're having to make decisions, and you're having to do that kind of on a just on a daily, hourly basis as well. It's just relentless on that front.
Well, look, we're going to make you make a decision now.
Right.
I want to know something just, that's small in life. I think there's a lot of things that people don't have dealt with by the government that our government are going to deal with. What is something small that really winds you up every single day and we're going to use your new office to deal with?
Gosh, that's...
I would like to propose anyone who stays in the middle lane who isn't overtaking is shot when they come off at their junction, because that's really upsetting me.
Turn the yellow speed cameras into like a little mini mortar.
Basically, yeah, like exactly that. Yeah. That's a great idea. Just a little, just snipers the whole way along the M1. And if you're in the middle lane for too long, that's you out.
Rather than mortar, have it like little dots.
Transport policy.
Well, also
Matt Richardson for transport.
Yeah, I'm going to be transport. So, I mean, if anything, I'm sort of slightly less right wing than Grant Shapps was. But just as you go along, if they're in the middle lane, bang. And also, that has the added benefit of the national intelligence average will go up.
What do you think I should do?
I think you should go for it.
Yeah, I think why? Like, I don't think, because the thing is, the people that sit in the middle lane, I don't think realise they're those people. So they'll go, yeah, they are annoying.
Also, it's a significant deterrent. You're like, okay, right, I can't out in the middle lane now. So.
I'm overtaking, or I'm over to the left.
Yeah. Do you think you put it down as a productivity thing? Because this was one of the things that they did want to increase the speed at one point. You could go, and the argument was that it would increase national productivity.
I love these sort of like small things that people come up with. That's a real blue sky meeting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's make everyone drive quick.
Yeah. How can we increase the productivity?
They'll be productive or dead. Who cares? Now, we're going to go through a couple of departments with you just to see if there's anything about them that you could add or that you want to do. Anything that really you want to get on your soapbox about Prime Minister. Let's go for environment and net zero. Now, this can be a controversial subject.
Yes.
What do you think? What do you want to do now that you're in charge?
Of the environment and net zero? What do I want to do? Well, what are my options?
Well, I mean...
Drill, baby, drill.
Everything from Lee Anderson's Let's Reopen the Coal Mines all the way to let's only walk places and you're not allowed to go on holiday anymore.
Oh, yeah.
There's a very big, broad spectrum you can go
Drill,
for.
baby, drill or Greta. Those are your options.
In the black and white nature of it. I am to the side of drill, baby, drill. We've got to get more energy independence. I mean, I think that's the thing. I do think on the more green issue stuff, we should just build more wind turbines. We have real problems with planning in this country, and
I know
it's kind of
just put them up.
Yeah. It's funny, but you get people in my local park the other day. There's a Friends of the Park thing, and I joined it. I thought this would be
that sounds like a euphemism for paedophiles. He's a friend of the playground. You're not I know exactly what you mean.
But there was going to be a 5G stand built, and they've basically led this campaign against it being built in the park. I'm like, that thing's got to go somewhere. They can paint it green. It's not going to be that big of a thing. And yet, because there's been a well-organised campaign where these people have made it their issue, we're now not going to have it.
The funniest one I saw was there was a Green Party council, I think, or group that banned solar farms or objected to solar farms being built.
My God.
You literally had one job.
There's one near me at the moment, in Oxfordshire, Woodstock, which is a very posh part of Oxfordshire, beautiful part of the county. And there's a solar farm going on a disused part of something, and they've all kicked off and they're like, oh, there's Russian money involved and all this. Whereas actually what they're doing is campaigning for it to go on quite a deprived part of the county.
Yeah.
Because then it's not their problem. Even where I live on an old airbase that they developed into housing. It's built a new village, basically. And nothing there is older than 7 years old. And people are now moaning about the other new houses they're building, even though none of us were there 7 years ago. Exactly. And I just think that is absolutely bonkers.
But it's going back to this 5G post thing not being built and whatever. These are the people 100 years ago that would have opposed street lighting being built, and I just sort of think it's crazy. We've got to get on and build.
It's quite a zeitgeisty idea now that sort of NIMBYs are the problem of so many of the issues we got in Britain. How much would you say, from your experience of government, is that true?
I think it's a problem. I mean, I think in a way, I'll stick up for our political system of the constituency model. I think works really well. And I remember one evening when Theresa May had been up all night at kind of like Brexit meetings with the EU and so on, hadn't gone to bed, and then still went to open a mental health facility the next. Was not doing that the day after that. President Trump was not doing that the day after. I think there's something really beautiful and important, and a lot of MPs are incredibly passionate about their kind of constituencies. I think that's really good, but I do think this sort of like organised campaigning can be a real problem with things and not seeing the sort of bigger picture of it. But it's difficult, right? Because it's, you also want to empower. Nobody's against localism. Nobody's against empowering local people either.
Well, maybe there's a solution in our government here where we take everyone that is a NIMBY and complains, and they can all move somewhere where nothing gets built.
Yeah,
we can give them an area. You know, we'll have a new, like just a giant, massive field, and they can all live there. And there's no planning that is allowed. Nothing is allowed to be built because they don't want anything, and everyone else can get on with their lives and have 5G. And nice new things.
Yeah. Well, I think that'd be, yeah.
Yeah, that's an easy way to do with it. Like,
Sorted.
you all now live in a field. Sorry, guys.
You live in a field. We've got the nice fibre optic and high-speed trains and everything else good in life.
I know. And it's when they...
Cheap electricity from all the nuclear power plants and the solar panels and the turbines.
And you can have a fire. That's all you're allowed.
Oh,
and I
sorry,
love it
no,
as
the
well.
fire actually disrupts the view and the natural light in the area.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're not allowed that.
You can't have a fire here for warmth because there's this endangered newt that may or may not be in the area. Oh, I hate it. It really winds
You
me
can
up.
only build between certain times of the year when that happens, can't you?
Oh, it's just wild. So yeah, I think that is a problem that we need to deal with. So all NIMBYs in a field together.
Yeah.
Lovely. Now, I have to say, we're going back to work now and the issues in our country. Do you think work from home should be banned, or are you a fan of it?
I'm broadly a fan of work from home.
I think it's quite ironic when Rishi Sunak says it's not a good idea when he lives above the shop.
Yeah, that is true. I think I'll tell you what I do worry about in terms of working at the moment is the amount of sick people that we've got. Right, like since the pandemic, we've now got like an extra 500,000 on the sick pay, and I think that's like a big challenge that we're going to have to deal with. So an unusual step for being a kind of right-wing Prime Minister is that I may take the decision to nationalise Joe Wicks and building one of those office studios in the Downing Street Garden.
Okay, well, so hang on. We're kidnapping Joe Wicks, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, we might co-opt him. We'll give him the option to co-opt.
Yeah, but if he says no, the SAS are going in.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to nationalise.
Just have Joe Wick's hologram to the nation at certain points in the day.
We're going to improve PE teaching. He's going to become the nation's PE teacher.
Where are we going to keep him in? 10? Number 10?
Yeah. We're building one of those like garden, gym, office studios things. There's quite a bit of space in the garden.
Okay, so like sort of like a luxury political prisoner, basically. Yeah, okay, nice. And he just has to do how many videos a day are we talking?
How many the algorithm dictates.
Yeah, fine.
He's a
Okay.
special guest of the Prime Minister, you know?
Yeah. Another
Honoured
euphemism.
guest, even.
Nationalising Joe Wicks is a great idea.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
It's going to really improve the nation's
People
health.
love him as well.
Exactly.
Maybe just offer him a cabinet position. That's sort of the easy way in, and we'll slowly get him there.
And if he says no, then kidnap him.
Yeah. He's going to... Look, it's happening either way, Joe.
Joe Wicks for Health Secretary.
Joe Wicks for Health Secretary.
Lord Wicks.
You know, come in. Look, we've lost a load of jobs. Bosh, I'm going to get in another 1 million. Easy. Great, Joe. Nice one. Have you got a kettlebell? Get one. You'll be fine. It's going to be great.
Free kettlebells for all.
Free kettlebells for all. I'm loving this. Kidnap Joe Wicks. It doesn't look great written down. I'm not going to lie. See that? Yeah, fantastic. I think that's a really good idea. When you look at the prime ministers you have been around in the flesh, you're now prime minister. Who do you think you would like to model yourself on out of everyone you've worked near?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I mean, they've all got unique attributes. They have all. I tell you one of the things.
Well, you can pick different attributes from each one.
I mean, I think I'd say the one thing they've all got in common is they've all got skins as thick as rhinos, right? Like politicians, just and I think that's again something that's quite similar with comedians. That they are used to having abuse and heckled and whatever, and they are as tough.
But as a comedian, you can go, no, you're a you can't do that if you're Theresa May, can you? Someone's like yelling at you or doing something.
Maybe that's where it went wrong for her.
Maybe more up to
You know
Theresa.
what? You, Mr.
Yeah.
Juncker.
You
I
know
am going
what?
to do
You
this.
You try and do it.
You
This
try
is
so
hard.
hard.
Go on, you get up here and do a speech, you bell end. Like, I would have loved her if she'd done
Oh yeah.
But and you should say this to people as well that come on the show, but something I often say, because I used to get it particularly when I was in number 10, it was a time when all my mates were getting married and whatever, so it was every sort of weekend, I'd then be sort of lobbied on, some idea that we might not have come up with to sort the Brexit crisis.
And I think probably every idea imaginable was said around that table, wasn't
Exactly.
it?
We were going through, so...
And we thought about nationalising Joe Wicks for Brexit.
exactly.
Come on, it's not a no. Quiet back, people.
Look, I mean, Boris was an amazing communicator. Theresa May, incredible work ethic, and why she did the job as well. And it's really interesting that she has stuck around. Unlike a lot of modern day prime ministers who disappear, like the fact she's fought a couple of elections again since then, I think is really admirable.
Well, it feels like. I remember, when Theresa May was in, everyone was moaning about it, and you look back and you go, those were the days of someone who was doing it because they think public service is important.
Yeah, exactly. And I worry that we always think that, though, about what's gone before, and is that us just all getting olher slightly?
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I think
John
David
Mader's now like an admired, revered figure, whereas during his time it was, a shag fest.
There's a festival a couple of miles down the road from me. It's called, what's it called? But it's the Festival of Music and Ideas, and it's very like Guardian reading, champagne socialist, gorgeous. Suede were on, but then Rachel Reeves did a talk, and it's like Rachel Reeves, Alistair Campbell, John Major, and everyone loved him. And you just think, what? Like, this is wild that you're now a part of this.
And it's kind of like why we don't have a bit more respect for the politicians that are trying to do it. But I don't know why that.
Well, look, you've been there as someone that you are now PM. If someone gave you the option today and went, look, you can go into politics and in 20 years you can be prime minister, would you say yes to that, or do you think it's not work? Do you think it's too hard?
I think it's too hard. I tell you what, it's really tough, Matt, is the mental health on it.
Yeah.
Like, having seen it up close, like, it's just brutal if you've got a family or anything. I think it's really, really hard. I think the pressures that we put modern day prime ministers under are extraordinary. And I think we will have a system actually for a while where we probably only get through prime ministers every 3 to 4 years, because I just think the strain on them will become too much.
So what attributes are in all the people that you've been around that have become prime minister? What is it in them that makes them want that job?
It's the long game. They all have the ability to play the long game. They have all got the patience to kind of stick with it as well. I mean, politics is an amazing game of snakes and ladders, and so much in that. I mean, it's like we've had it on speed over the last 5 years, right? Like, it's been incredible to see the kind of different political permutations that have happened and changed so radically. But yeah, they can all play the long game, but Westminster is very easy to get caught in the Westminster bubble, and it can be, Lorin, you've had a bit of experience of this as well. Like, you're made to feel very important at the centre of things, and like there are all the newsletters and all the emails and so on, but it can be very intoxicating in that. It's very difficult to kind of step out of it.
Do you think too many people in Westminster today are driven around being in that bubble and being featured in those newsletters and being noted, rather than being, we're there to govern for the country, it needs to be mission focused?
Yeah, and what they're in it for. What I thought was quite interesting about one of the recent reshuffles is quite a lot of people who've been cabinet ministers have come back in at kind of middle ranking levels on issues that they really care about. So, like, the thing I care about now, if I ever did go into politics, it would be to do job stuff, right?
Yeah.
But it took me quite a while post number 10 to come up with that was going to be my thing, and that was what I wanted to do. And I think sometimes there's just a bit of politicians slightly forgetting the initial circumstances of why they got into it, and they get too caught in the game of getting on that week and landing a good media hit and so on. The best politicians are the ones that can kind of stand back from that and see the bigger picture. And there aren't many of those that can do that.
Do you come across many people especially in the job of prime minister, that go, oh, I shouldn't really be here, I've got imposter syndrome, or are they all do they have total belief in their convictions and what they think and what they're doing?
They do pretty much have total belief. I mean, I think that there's definitely issues that they're more comfortable on. Right?
Yeah.
And they sort of feel like, they'll need less advice on those things because they're steeped in it much more. So they definitely have their sort of like a bit like home and away on question of sport, right? They've got their topics that they're very good at, and then you do get amazing amount of advice, and you have whole departments dedicated to giving you options, right? And that is what a lot of the time you're being asked to as Prime Minister is not coming up with that many ideas, like random sort of ideas and whatever. A lot of it's about taking decisions.
Right. Interesting. So really fascinating. It was so interesting. Could talk to you all day about this.
Well,
so now you are Prime Minister. What is the one thing that you saw that was a perk of the job that you can't wait to experience yourself?
That's. I mean, you do get invited to some incredible events, right? I mean, you could pretty much sort of go through the elite calendar of whatever you wanted to go to.
I suppose you never fly in economy again.
No. Yeah, and you got your own plane, right? RF Voyager was pretty amazing.
Lovely.
That was pretty.
Lie flat seats on there.
Yeah,
lovely.
There was a row of when that became, RF Voyager became like the PM's official plane, and it was such a big hoo-ha of. I guess you could call them equivalent of NIMBYs, of not wanting to spend any money on the PM doing it. It's like, I want the Prime Minister to be able to fly on a plane. I think it's an embarrassment if a PM, when you see a PM or a leader of a country in a Ryanair flight. Like,
I agree. I do agree with this. I did something on Radio 4 the other day. And
it was Blair Force One they were all moaning about. I remember that. They thought it was unacceptable, didn't they?
But it was like, why isn't Rishi Sunak taking a sort of train to Southampton and whatever? And I get the whole, like, why is he flying in a helicopter to Southampton? I do see that logic. But then there's also you can't just, imagine if he gets stuck outside Southampton and some sort of terrorist attack happens or needs to take a call from Biden or whatever, and he can't do it because he's, on a train and whatever.
On a bus replacement service.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so I do think we need to be. There is a balance.
And we know the Conservative Party and buses don't mix post Brexit, do they? So I agree. I think you get your own plane. Nice holidays as a Prime Minister? Do you get to go to nice countries? Because I would be going as much business with the Maldives as possible, please.
You'd be desperate to strike your trade deal with the Maldives.
Look, the Seychelles are an important alliance that we need to work on.
We need some more research trips just to determine this.
What it is. I need to be on the ground. I need to see it for myself.
Can we invade Lanzarote?
But yeah, going to the sporting fixtures and stuff like that is quite a sort of cool thing. That's one of the sort of best perks of it.
But you're probably so knackered at the end of the day. You've done so much Prime Ministering. I'd be like, I'm not going to Wembley. Yeah,
I mean, the hours are like crazy long, right? I mean, you're up at, you're in your kind of first meetings at 7:30. You're working all the way through till 9:10, and then you have a stack of red boxes that you're working on till the early hours of the morning, right? So it is relentless in that
Absolutely,
regard.
yeah. Maybe that's the thing we should do with we'll do 11 till 4.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna 4 days a week.
4 days.
We're gonna do a 4-day work week in number 10. I think that's a really important thing for this premiership. Look, Prime Minister Jimmy, thank you so much for coming in. You have a podcast of your own, all about jobs.
Yes, which you're going to be coming on. It's Jimmy's Jobs of the Future. We interview entrepreneurs and interesting business leaders, and we've had a few politicians on it as well, thinking about where they think the future of our economy is going through the prism of jobs. So, yeah, check it out.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.